Hello, it is I. I am here. It is the podcast Parle. Bonjour, aloha. And this time, I thought it would be cool to bring a special guest in. Special guest, hi.
Hello.
Okay, perfect. This is a good friend of mine. I wanted to test out how having a partner with me would work because I feel like that's a nicer podcast when it's a discussion besides a guy just rambling to himself in his bedroom. Now it's two guys rambling to themselves in a bedroom. Separate bedrooms.
Yes.
Okay, so today's topic is based from a comment in the last video from Lance568. Go check him out. He's better than me because he's actually serious about this. This is for fun. This entire thing is. His question is, what does it mean to be a human being? And Will's a great person to bring up on this because he's a human being.
I see.
Yeah, and also he also has a lot of views on like kind of because I kind of wanted to touch that with like the aspect of religious views of humans and such that. And William's a good debater when it comes to religion, so great guest to bring along. Great guest to bring along. And also our conversations always end up somewhere anyway. So yeah, to start it off, I mean, to really define human, we have to define life theoretically, correct? I mean, that's my assumption.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Because like you, by knowing what life is, you can then go into human. Because that's what a human is. It's a living being that theoretically has thought, is what gives it life. But so, I mean, how do you define life? What do you say life is defined as?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I would say life is. Well, it really depends on how you how one views life. If it's sitting on the couch, vegging the whole time, that's your life. Go for it. But I would view it as more how you experience things throughout your existence and what you make of it.
True.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I kind of define life on the actual like scientific term itself because I had to study that for biology. And scientifically, life is made up of a bunch of characteristics. You reproduce, you eat, you stay good, you stay really good, and yeah, those are like the basics. There's actually like words, but who has time for that? But yeah, those are like the basic definitions of life. Is that pretty much the idea of you make children, you feed yourself so you can be able to make children, and you stay healthy and good so you can be able to eat so you can be able to make children. But I mean, I feel like that's one different. Sorry.
We live to procreate.
Pretty much. We live to procreate is what definition of life can be kind of summed up in a way. Now onto like what makes us different from an animal. I mean, that's kind of funny you ask because it's time we're reading poem essays by Alice Walker who try to say that animals can be considered human or humans can be considered animal, which is true, but the other way is a little bit weirder, you know, because we say human is defined by thought, but then one can argue animals have thought. The gecko that you may see on screen right now is probably thinking of stuff, but what about the thought that's different? I mean, I've always heard the thought difference is that we can comprehend ourselves. That's what I've always
says that animals can't.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember reading this actually in an I don't remember the exact article at all, but it was an article I found where a chimpanzee was almost considered human because he was able to answer questions. But what the problem was, he couldn't ask questions. That was another big problem where I guess asking questions and having this thought of inquiry, but to a not just for a survival sense, but just of a curiosity sense overall, kind of gives us the human characteristics. Because like a dog, for example, the most would ask the question is, "Can I eat this?" Well, like a human would go, "Should I eat this?" You know, it's more of the broader topics that animals theoretically cannot comprehend. Is the supposed idea.
Yeah.
But you also got to think what makes us human. What? Because there could be other creatures in this universe that have life that think just like us. But what makes us different? What makes us different? What do you think?
Going kind of goes back to what I said originally.
Mm-hmm.
How you spend your life, because most animals will just not really. They'll stay in one spot and just kind of try to survive. And I guess that's in essence what it is to be human, just surviving. But it's what you do with that while you're trying to survive that I guess really makes us different from animals.
Good point. Good point. So you're saying is if we saw, like, for example, a dolphin, instead of trying to be like, I'm trying to survive out here. Like, one day a dolphin's like, I'm gonna make a tool. He just makes one. Like, for some reason, this dolphin develops a little tiny axe. We don't know why, but it does. And as it makes the axe, it then later tries to make something else, and it starts becoming a scientist dolphin, let's say. And this does it on its own, not from human input or anything such as that. And then it somehow from this dolphin, it establishes a dolphin civilization, and it develops all this, and it starts looking after the sick. It does all these things. Could we then, at this point, call this dolphin a human being?
I don't know. I feel like a dolphin civilization would differ heavily from a human civilization.
True. True.
Just species-wise, because they don't really have opposable thumbs.
Good point. Good point.
To use an axe.
Yeah. Good point. That's a good argument.
I guess that would just come down to species-wise.
Looking at this question, the diction of it is pretty important, because we're saying what makes a human being, but a human being at the end of the day is a species. It's just a species name to an extent. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I would say being rather than human being.
So we're saying something's a being can exist, but a human is technically it. There can be a human who isn't really a human being.
Yeah.
Like
in a sense, yeah.
Yeah, like when you see on like TV where you see like those humans that are like stashed away into like a dark cell for years and years. They just develop into, it's like Gollum, Gollum. Yeah, Gollum. Yeah, that's his name.
Yeah, they return back to their animal-like state.
But theoretically, he's still a human. Well, in that case, a dwarf, no, a hobbit, but a human, kind of a human-like creature nonetheless.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now let's go a little bit further. So let's talk a little bit about religion, since we're on like a philosophical thought, and I know that's one of your play fields, pretty much.
You're on very dangerous territory, my friend.
I am. So let's start let's start with an argument that my own father has posed to you, and you hate the argument. My father poses the idea that atheism is religion.
Okay. Here's my thing with that.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So in theory, he's right.
Why is he right?
Not really. You don't really see many atheists practicing them being atheists. They just kind of live their lives not believing in it. Mm-hmm. Whereas religion's more of a practice.
So you're saying so it requires the act of doing for it to be a religion?
More like yeah, okay, I see what you mean. I retract my statement, but I would the difference would be more of religion became like it was a thought, which was faith, but then it became more of a collective. So yeah.
Yeah. Because
so yeah, it would be practiced rather than just faith alone.
Because the idea of religion is an interesting definition. Because a great example of this is Buddhism, for example. My father, again, he says Buddhism isn't a religion; it's more of a tradition. And I just finished looking at. I had to do a quick research of Buddhism for my school and looking into it a little bit more. It has the characteristics that for that time, my class defined it as a religion. And before we continue, what do you define as a religion? You gotta get that across.
Well, most things, depending on how heavily you believe in them, could be a religion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like some random person could walk up and say that, like, a banana's a god or the flying spaghetti monster, and that would be their religion.
Pastafari.
I would say it's essentially how heavily they believe in it is what makes it a religion to them. It's what you believe, essentially.
So there could. So by then, almost anything you believe in is a religion. So such as like I believe that if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything is a religion of itself.
It depends on how hard. I would say it would not entirely, because there are limitations with that. Most people, when they think of religion, think of one deity or several, actually. But honestly, it just depends on what that person defines as religion, I guess.
A little more into religion. Is it? So talk about the many deities or the one or the many. In pop culture and in general, we reference a lot of different kind of Greek, Roman, sometimes even I think Hinduism more or less, Norse. We say myths, but in all actuality, they are religions, right?
They were at one point, yes.
Yeah.
Or still are. Yes.
So do you ever think that it maybe it's wrong that we kind of simplify them to myths a lot more of these times?
The thing with that is over time, things like that will get I'm trying to think of the word. People won't believe in it as much as they used to because they just kind of lost faith, or the stories get messed up and it becomes more of myth and fairy tale than what was actual.
Could the process work? Oh, sorry. Continue.
No, go. You're fine.
Could the process then continue the other way? Because if the slow the dying off of a religion becomes a product of a myth, could a myth slowly become a religion of itself? Because we see that a lot in like video games where we'll have like these little ideas where like, whoa, one day I saw an alien, and then out of nowhere you have an alien religion. And how?
Dude, I'm sure there's an alien religion somewhere.
There has to be. Put that in the comments. Put it in the comments if you can find an alien religion. Yeah. I mean, another interesting thing about religion, to kind of hit on the more monotheistic religions such as Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and such. Their idea of God is interesting. I'm a Christian, William's an atheist, just to kind of give you the perspectives that we're coming from. One of the things from most of those religions is that God is good, therefore he cannot do evil. But William, you made me watch a video. You made me watch a video playlist where someone argues against that and observes it in a different perspective that most would not consider it. Would you like to tell more about it?
Yeah. So, in this playlist that I sent Terrence, the creator basically went into the topic of God and religion with under the Christianity perspective as more of a simulation, to just show how power would corrupt people, and then he proposed the idea that this life and this religion could be just a simulation for a test in another world. Essentially saying that one person with given the power would show the underlying corruption rather than the power corrupting the person. So he showed Yahweh in the simulation as the test subject, telling through the stories of the Bible as the simulation would go on. And over time, stories would be told on how, and then he would go through after the test to try and figure out what went wrong, and to show how that he is not suitable to hold a powerful position in their society.
Well, I kind of enjoyed watching that thing because one, it of course causes you to question everything, which anything William says does these days. But it also poses many good questions, such as one of the big things is determining he isn't good because he did not do good as a god. But an interesting concept is how do we define a god as doing good? Because the basic argument against God is if he's all powerful and all good, why is there bad in the world? Well, you got to consider that there's always a chance that bad is part of the good. We define good as simply a utopia where everything is happy and joy. But different people, different cultures, different everything just define that good as different things. So kind of posing an argument against is what if what we're experiencing is good? What if this duality of evil and goodness is the good?
Well, that's all subjective. What you define as good could be completely different from what someone else would.
Can we give an can we define the objectivity to good?
No. That is more to the person, the individual, to define what is good to them. Right and wrong are completely subjective. There is very little, although the Bible will disagree that and say that it is objective and that morality is based off of the Bible and the commandments. But it is wholly subjective.
I mean, I oppose the argument, though. So this is also leading to another debate we have, which is around when talk about the murder debate we bring up.
Me and Terrence occasionally will have a back and forth about whether or not murder in itself is wrong. And I say no.
My argument's always it is wrong, not because of a religious stance, but purely from a survival sense. If you murder something that adds value to your life, such as, let's say, you murder a person that could be the person who develops the cure for cancer, by murdering them, it is wrong because you're creating an inferior future for yourself. That is kind of how what I always argue and William argues.
You would have no way of knowing if they were to do anything grand in life. You'd have no way of knowing that until... Actually, you would have no way of knowing it. You're basing this off of your own views of right and wrong, whereas someone's could be wholly different. And they could view murder as completely justified.
I mean, you've showcased today these justifications are in the case of, like, war, is when you bring up these justifications, such as.
Yeah. Some would justify, war. Others would do, breaking into my house or, really anything that they would try to pass off so that they could get away with it. My whole funny thing that in something that I found or listened to was an idea that with religion, if that whole thing existed, then murder would be completely justifiable because everything that happens to God's plan and it's ultimately good. So murder would be good according to that plan because it was according to it, and it's his plan. So he's ultimately good. So it's completely justified.
True. Now, time. I don't want to run it too long as last time, so let's end it with one big point. What happened if let's say all religions were wiped out? I know we're in the hypotheticals a lot, but that's where me and you flourish, is in the hypothetical ideas pretty much.
Yeah.
In this hypothetical, let's say we remove all religion, what will the world occur to? What would be the path of the world? Let's say we start in the very first man, or what we consider as human, started walking, interacting with each other, and they did not believe in anything. And this continues forever. And let's say we get to 2020. What could be 2020 look like, and what could the path to that look like?
I don't know. It's kind of weird to think about with this because if you go look back, a lot of wars were started because of differing religions.
True.
So I feel like a lot of societies could be still around if there was no religion in at all. And then that would be a whole different look, which would be kind of cool to see.
I mean, that's a very good point. Like, I'm thinking about it now. Like, example, the entire country of Israel was created because of a religion.
Yeah.
So we would have less of these, probably, what's the word? Many small nations, but a lot of big groups, pretty much. Like you'll see in we see in a lot of video games where they'll be like, hey, you have a big group here, big group here, big group here, big group here. They fight, pretty much. It'd be stuff like that.
Yeah.
Another interesting Another thing is, how would technology go further? Because I feel, to an extent, I think technology would go crazier to an extent. Because if we take the idea that religion caused these moral values to exist to an extent, we would be less cautious and more innovative in going for it. Such as the atomic bomb is a great example. The man who created it references the religion of Hinduism by calling his own self Shiva after creating it. He called himself, he's come to destroy a world, which is kind of, I think that was a reference to Shiva, where he is this all-powerful creature, and more like it are on the way. So if we remove that, would technology progress farther to that point, to 2020? And on top of that, what would it look like, if one would say? Would it be crazier to an extent, such as we would be mixing genes of everything? We would be doing everything that's considered unholy by many religions. What do you think? What do you think about that?
It's weird to think about with that. Honestly, I would say the technology would kind of progress more genetically, yeah. Because there's not that many limitations, because you do see a lot of like protesters with the genetic stuff on how it's saying it's not right to play with something that trying to think of the words, that you didn't make or something. Kind of, you're messing with God's creations, in other words.
Yes.
And if that wasn't there, I feel like they wouldn't have as many issues with trying to genetically modify or enhance certain things.
But we're about to wrap this up. I do like to hit you with one of your own words you said to me, which I actually took to heart. Was we were hanging out, and you mentioned, I was talking about like the fun, how much fun it would be just to genetically engineer with a bunch, to tinker with so many different organisms, and you brought up the argument, which is, I would say, is one of the greatest, is that as I know the complications of how nature works, why would I mess with something that was so fine tuned perfectly that it's you don't want to mess with it? You presented this to me, and I feel that kind of counters what you said to an extent.
I don't remember this conversation at all.
Yeah. It was like I was being like a mad scientist dude for a second. You go, dude, nature got it right. Why would you mess with it? And I'm like, good point.
Okay, so like, here's my thing with that. Everything nature-wise was balanced for a reason. Like, it took thousands of years of evolution to get everything right.
Yes.
When you mess with nature, you better be careful. Because
Good point.
otherwise, you're gonna cause something that you cannot handle.
Good point. Good point. Well, it is coming time. Thank you for this amazing time, William. It was great. Anything you'd like to say? Anything you'd like to say before I end it here?
Oh, go subscribe to Terrence's channel. If you don't, we're gonna have a problem.
Yeah. Also, please leave questions and comments that you would like to be discussing next time. Maybe we will. Maybe it will be some random person I find on the street. Who knows? I make this up as I go. Thank you, Will. Thank you, everyone. Au revoir. Adios. Aloha. Goodbye.